Greetings to you and welcome to this episode of Grace Podcast. I'm Timothy Muse. I'll be your host as we spend this time together today. It's a joy to be with you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for making this podcast a part of your journey. And I want to thank you for being on the journey, for being part of this, for walking this road. It is such a joy to know that you are investing in you, that you are putting the time and the energy and the interests in bettering yourself. That's not to say that where you are is bad. That's not to say that where you are needs to be criticized or judged. No, absolutely not. Not at all. It's just to say that you recognize that there are places in your life that you would like to be more you, that you would like to be better. And the fact that you recognize that, the fact that you're there is such a joy. I want to thank you for being on that journey. I want to thank you for allowing me to come alongside you. If this podcast is helpful, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. I post on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you follow me or the podcasting or the life coaching on any one of those feeds, then you'll see these episodes. Share them out there. Put them out there for others to hear. If you're on one of the listening platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, follow us, give us a rating and review. Every positive rating and review tells the platform people are listening, and you get notifications when a new episode comes out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, as always, GraceLifeCoaching.com. That's where you can get a hold of me. GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. I would love to hear from you. If I can come alongside you, if I can answer some questions, if you got some dialogues, whatever it is, I'd love to talk. GraceLifeCoaching.com. It's got all my contact information. Reach out. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can go somewhere together. So we've been on this journey, this series on showing up for yourself. And we've talked about showing up consistently and building discipline and trusting yourself. Last time we talked about the power of small wins. Today, I want to go a little bit deeper still. You know, this is the whole point. We move deeper and deeper. I want to talk about something uncomfortable, something most people spend years trying to avoid. And that is talking about honesty. Honesty. Now, not honesty with other people. We're usually pretty good about that when we work on it. I'm talking about honesty with yourself, being completely honest with yourself. You know, the G in Grace Life Coaching is get real with where you're at. That is total honesty, getting into it. The truth is, a lot of people are stuck because they don't lack ability. They're stuck because they refuse to face what's actually going on inside of them, what's actually happening inside of them. And until we can get truly honest with ourselves, until we can get real with where we are, we can get really real with where we are, we're just going to stay stuck. We're just going to stay stuck in that start-stop. We're going to stay stuck in that lack of discipline. We're going to stay stuck in that, looking for the big goals and the big stuff, but not engaging the small wins. So we want to work on getting honest with ourselves because growth becomes possible when we get honest. When we're not honest with ourselves, growth is impossible. We can't actually figure out where we're going because we're not honest with where we are. Because honesty is painful. Most people just would choose to avoid it. Most people choose avoidance. The art of avoidance. We have the art of avoidance painted out before us in big pictures all over the place. Most people, when they're dealing with avoidance, think avoidance looks obvious. I'm avoiding something. And sometimes, yes, sometimes avoidance is obvious. We think about avoidance, we think about the big things. We think about the things that avoid us. But avoidance is usually subtle avoidance. We avoid becoming honest with ourselves in very subtle ways. Staying busy all the time, constant distractions, overthinking, endless scrolling, doom scrolling, being on your phone, binging Netflix, whatever, starting new plans without following through. They all have one underlying thing: the refusal to sit with reality. The refusal, the inability to sit with where we truly are. When we're distracted, when we have all these flashy things going on all over the place, we can't spend that time honestly sitting with who we are because reality can feel uncomfortable. It can really, truly feel uncomfortable when we honestly sit with who we are and where we're at. Maybe you know this already. You're a procrastinator, or you've been procrastinating. You've been settling. You've been blaming circumstances, right? You're avoiding hard conversations. You've been numbing yourself instead of growing. You can look at that. You can see that. It doesn't take much to see when we're in those avoidant behaviors. And instead of facing that truth, okay, I need to level up. I need to figure out what's going on. I need to show up for me and get myself right. We just distract ourselves. Not because we're weak, because honesty requires courage. It requires the courage to look deeper inside of ourselves and really see what's going on. Not just to say, I've been procrastinating, but why have I been procrastinating? Not just to say, I've settled for this rather than reaching for what I really want, but to ask the question, why? See, that's the big question. The honest question is why? What is deeper in there? Not just seeing it, but going deeper and asking that question. And it's not because you're weak. It's not because you're weak. It's because it's uncomfortable. Dealing with those deep, unsettling truths are uncomfortable, and we strive for comfort. We strive to be comfortable. All right? So why do people avoid themselves? I mean, we have to live with ourselves, right? We have to deal with ourselves every day. Why do we avoid ourselves? Why is it and it's a growing epidemic. I really, truly do feel that it is a growing epidemic, or maybe I should say it this way. It's becoming more obvious in our world that people are avoiding themselves, that people are emptying themselves for others and all these other things while at the same time avoiding themselves. Showing up for ourselves is not avoiding ourselves, but it's confronting the truths that lie inside of us and being honest, because honesty threatens identity. And that's really where it's at. Why do people avoid themselves? Because honesty threatens identity. If we start to admit where we are at, if we start to name it, identify it, and speak it into being, then we have to confront something difficult, okay? If you admit you're unhappy, or you're inconsistent, or you're afraid, or you're stuck. I mean, if those words come out of your mouth, they come from deep within. I'm afraid, I'm inconsistent, I'm unhappy, I'm stuck. Then comfort has to be confronted. Change becomes your responsibility, not just something that you want. Once you acknowledge, once you're honest with where you are, then change becomes your responsibility. As someone who's striving to live the best life, have the best relationships, be the best person in the world, once we find the places in our lives that are avoiding, we're settling, once we identify them, then it becomes our responsibility to say, okay, I either need to accept that I'm unhappy and live with it, or it's my responsibility to change it. No one's going to change it for you. No one's going to pour happiness into your life. No one's going to bring consistency. That comes from you. This is what it means to show up for yourself. So once one admits where they are, it is their responsibility to change it. All right. And that's heavy, because once you see the truth clearly, you can't unsee it. Once you really start to dig into what's going on inside, you can't unsee it. It just sits there. You either have to confront it and move through it and come to some kind of balance with it, or you have to change. You can't unsee it. So many people stay distracted because distraction feels safer than transformation. Let me say that again. So many people stay distracted because distraction feels safer than transformation. They say, busy instead of intentional. They stay comfortable instead of honest. They stay reactive instead of disciplined. All right. Have you been there? You stay busy all the time rather than intentional. I'm busy all the time. I'm busy. I'm here. I'm there. Everywhere, but I'm not intentional about anything. All right. Comfort. We love comfort. Comfort is a big thing. Stay comfortable instead of honest. Here's the reality. Avoidance might protect your comfort temporarily, but it destroys your growth long term. It really, truly does. You cannot grow by being avoidant. Avoidant makes you comfortable, but it brings your long-term growth to a halt. So I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a question that is really, really important. It can change your life if you're willing to answer it honestly. All right? It can change your life if you're willing to answer it honestly. And here it is. What am I pretending not to know? See, we know ourselves. We know ourselves, but we pretend not to know. What am I pretending not to know? Sit with that for a moment. Sit with that for a moment. Maybe you need to pause the podcast right now for a moment. Sit with that. What am I pretending not to know? Because deep down, most people already know. They know what they need to change. They know what conversations they need to have, what habits are damaging them, what fear is controlling them, what excuses they keep repeating. The issue isn't necessarily awareness. Now, if you don't know, if you're like, I don't know, well, then maybe you need to sit down and talk with someone. Maybe that's where a coach or a therapist can come alongside. But most people know it. Most people are aware of it. It's avoidance. It's not lack of awareness, it's avoidance. And growth begins the moment you stop pretending. Not when you become perfect, not when everything is figured out, but when you finally become honest. When you finally open up that treasure chest of things that you pretend not to know and start to get honest. So what am I pretending not to know? What am I pretending inside of my life that I don't know about? I know I'm a procrastinator. I know that I have a list of things to do, and that list of things will just bump up until the stress is so high that I have no choice but to do it. I know that about myself, right? But I'm pretending that that's not the case. I work better under pressure, or I have so many other things to do, okay? Or I know that I need to quit eating donuts, or I need to quit smoking, or I need to quit drinking so much. I know that, but it's really not that bad. See, what am I pretending not to know? What am I convincing myself of? Growth begins the moment you stop pretending. Growth begins the moment you stop pretending and start confronting. Not when you become perfect, not when everything is figured out, but when you stop pretending and start being honest with yourself. All right, so let's get practical, because self-awareness without action changes nothing. It really does. You can have the self-awareness. I know exactly what I need to do. I'm just not going to do it. No, I remember, years ago, I used to watch G.I. Joe when I was younger, the G.I. Joe cartoons, and they would always end the cartoons with the same slogan. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Half the battle. Filling ourselves with knowledge is good, but knowledge without action is only half the work. All right? So let's get practical. Step 1, identify where you're avoiding growth. Identify it, name it, claim it, put identity to it. Ask yourself, where am I making excuses? Where am I blaming instead of acting? What area of my life feels consistently unresolved? Now, don't do it with judgment. Oftentimes, that's the thing, is when we start asking those questions and we bring in criticism and judgment and emotion and shame. Don't do that. That's not going to be helpful. This isn't a judgment thing. This isn't a shaming thing. This is an identifying thing. Where am I making excuses? Where am I blaming instead of acting? What area of my life feels consistently unresolved? I don't have time. Or, it's somebody else's fault. I keep sitting down to dinner and there's more things to eat than I can eat. There's always things. Stop blaming. Act. Don't judge yourself. Just observe honestly. Awareness is where we begin to change. When we can name it, when we can claim it, when we can start to own it, then we can start moving forward. So then sit in silence for a few minutes daily. I know it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. I mean, if you want action, you got to act, right? No, sit in silence for a few minutes daily. Once we identify where we're avoiding growth, then sit in silence. Learn to sit in silence. Most people are constantly consumed with noise and content and opinions and distractions. And because of that, they never hear themselves think. They never really start to get deeper into why I'm doing what I do. So sit in silence, 5 minutes, no noise, no content, no opinions, no distractions. Just dwell in yourself. Let your brain and your nervous system speak honestly about it. And if you need something to think about for 5 minutes, think about that one thing that where you're avoiding growth. When you identify it, sit in silence with it. Have a cup of tea with it, if you will. Dwell with it for a little bit. Take 5 minutes. No phone, no music, no distractions, just silence. You will be surprised what happens when you do that. You'll be surprised what surfaces. You start to get some answers to those questions, some of those deeper why questions. And then act. Replace avoidance with one direct action. This matters because honesty alone isn't enough. Like I said, knowing is half the battle. You need movement. So identify one thing you've been avoiding and take one step toward it. One step. Remember, small wins we talked about before. One step toward it. Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be monumental. One step forward. One step. Make the phone call that you've been thinking about making. Start the application that you've been thinking about doing. Remember I said before, when you start something, usually it just flows through, but you have to start it. Take that one step. Have that conversation. Start that application. Open that document. Schedule that appointment. Not the whole process, just the next step. The next step. Take that one step towards movement. Move away from that avoidance into action. Action creates momentum, but we need to start. It needs to start somewhere. It needs an outside force. Again, I use the train image so much about momentum. Well, a train sitting still isn't just going to create its own momentum. It needs a force to begin it. Okay, that's where the engine fires up and turns up the RPMs and engages the drive, and the wheels start to turn. And the more that the wheels start to turn, the less the engine has to work because momentum is built. Okay, momentum has been built. Same thing for you. Take that one step, that one little action. Start the momentum towards change rather than avoidance. Okay, and stop waiting to feel ready. This is a huge thing. This is so important. Most people think confidence comes before action. It doesn't. I've said this before. Confidence comes after action. You become stronger by facing things, not avoiding them, and you're never going to feel ready. Feeling ready is an illusion. It is an illusion. You're never going to feel ready. Just do. Take the next step, and then let that action build into the next action. That's how it is. Take the next step. Let that action build into the next action. One action after another, over and over. Keep moving the repetitive momentum forward. Okay? That's what's so important. It's just one small action can start to break the cycle of where you've been for. All right? And here's the thing, when you stop avoiding yourself, when you stop looking for comfort, there's freedom in it. Life gets clearer. Not easier immediately, but clearer. Because now your energy is no longer spent hiding or escaping or pretending or distracting yourself. Now your energy can be used for growth. And that's powerful. Because honesty creates alignment. It creates alignment. When you're honest with who you are, it aligns with your actions and your thinking. When we can have alignment, between our desires, our goals, our hopes, our thinking, and our actions, everything moves in such a much better way. Think about water, if you will, for a minute. Think about a river. A river has energy and flow because everything is in alignment. Direction, water, gravity, all of it. But if you take a glass of water and you pour it out on the table, there's no energy in it because there's no alignment. Everything's going in different directions. The water's going all over the place. When you have alignment, when your goals, your passion, your drive, your honesty, your actions are all moving in the same direction, that builds consistency and momentum. So you're looking for alignment. And that's the freedom that we get when we start out being honest with ourselves. All of a sudden, we're starting aligning our thoughts with our actions, our goals, our dreams, our passions. All right, moving it all together. Honesty creates alignments. Your thoughts, your actions, your goals begin moving in the same direction. Okay, and that creates momentum. And once that momentum gets going, not only is it harder and harder to stop, but it becomes more and more enjoyable to engage. So create that momentum, create it, allow it to move forward. So get in there, ask yourself some honest questions. That one I asked earlier, what am I pretending not to know? All right. Once you have the answer, take one direct action towards it. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. Because growth begins the moment honesty replaces avoidance. And that's what we want to do. You want to show up for yourself, replace your avoidance with honesty. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be fun? Not always. Is it going to be comfortable? Probably not. But we're not here to be easy and fun and comfortable, are we? You're not listening to this because you just want the path to ease and comfort and fun. You're listening to this because you want to show up for yourself. You want to show up for yourself and the people around you, and that is so important. That's what I got for you today, my friends. I hope it's helpful. If it is, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. If you're on the listening platforms and follow us, give us a rating and review. If you want to reach out to me, as always, GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. I truly would love to hear from you. At Grace Life Coaching, we want you to be the best you.